In the Quaking of America, you talk about the GOP inciting a civil war by inciting a collective trauma response. Talk about that.
Right. I'm gonna just say, so when I talk about the GOP inciting a war, and inciting specifically a racialized war, having very racialized pieces to it, I think about it about when I was watching the January 6th coup, attempted coup, right? I'm sitting there watching that, and there's a part of me that knows this is getting ready to be crazy, right? I'm watching what people starting to show up, white people starting to, a lot of white, like when a whole lot of white people start showing up to an event, as in my black body, I'm like, this could go bad really quickly, right? Specifically around democracy, around votes, around legislature, right? I'm sitting there watching that, and then I start to see the gallows being erected, right? I'm like, wow, that's, so we're reaching back, and now we got a hangman's noose. Just showed up, emerged out of nowhere, right? Now I'm starting to see the swastika signs. Oh, okay, all right. Now I'm starting to see the Auschwitz signs. Now I'm starting to see AR-15s. Now I'm starting to see weapons. Now I'm starting to see people kick out windows. Ain't nobody dead yet? Ain't nobody shot nobody yet? Why are they allowing this to happen? So as I'm watching this, there's both this kind of, I'm simultaneously holding this thing like, this is curious and disbelief that all of these white bodies are beginning to do things and hearken back to particular points in our culture and in our history, right? The noose, the Auschwitz, all these particular pieces, right? And nothing's happening. Nobody's moving in to stop it. Everybody, right? Everybody's leaning towards giving white people a lot of comfort, right? Leaning into, let's wait and see, right? When I'm sitting there thinking that would never be allowed if indigenous people, 6,000 indigenous, 10,000 indigenous people showed up and decided to do that. That would never be allowed if 10,000 black folks lined up and started and tried to do that type of stuff. The GOP is purposely trying to incite a collective trauma response, particularly around race. The reason why is that I believe it's good business. There's a market for racism. There's always been a market for white body supremacy. And so the reason why is because chaos breeds opportunity. And so for me, there's an opportunity, and the GOP sees an opportunity to create enough chaos so certain people can yield and reap power and reap riches and reap land and continue the same old kind of hamster wheel that we've been going on. And so for me, this idea of the GOP literally inciting racial trauma response is good business. It lines up with their vested interest, right? And so, but I want to be clear here. It is not just the GOP that is aiding in this. The idea of the hand-wringing Democrat as part and parcel of this whole idea of white body supremacy is also important in that that you can't have one without the other, right? That part of the reason why the GOP has the opportunity to seize power, to be fascist, to usher in an authoritarian government is because of the fecklessness also of the Democratic Party, right? We live in a two-party system, right? And if one of those parties are bullyish and the other one is feckless, you have a recipe for authoritarianism. And that's what we're seeing right now. So when I say that the GOP is inciting it, I'm not saying the GOP by themselves. I'm saying the structure is ripe for the GOP to usher in an authoritarian government, so certain people can get rich and certain people can stay in power and certain people can determine whether or not me and you walk around here as free people, relatively free people, or loose people, right? Or rather, or that we end up in labor camps again. One of the things that is at the foundation of this society is that this anti-blackness and this indigenous invisibility is woven in and around and through every institution. The other thing that is woven in and around and through this institution is white fear, right? And so part of the evoking that the GOP is trying to do is stoking that fear, stoking and putting things up that really historically white people remember, right? Even if it's not in the forefront of their brain, something about their body responds to that, right? So there's a fertile field for the GOP to incite racial violence, because that piece has never been dealt with. The piece around white people's supposed fear of the black body, right? Even if it's not real, even if it's not couched in anything, that still exists. And so all they're doing is stoking those pieces and using it in order to position themselves to continue to stay in power and continue to fundraise and do those particular pieces. That's why I believe they're doing it. And that's why I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's important for the GOP in terms of their base, to keep giving their base the information and the things that they like to hear, right? Keep giving that to them, so when they need them, if they need a small section of people to take up arms and storm the Capitol again, there are people out here. There are people in that white Republican population that will do that. They know there's a percentage of those people, right? If they want to fundraise, they know there's a percentage of people that all they got to hear is anti-black something, right? And so the stoking is something that they've been doing anyway. What I'm talking about in Quaking of America is that the energy now is so pressurized that there is even more opportunity for the GOP to kick off a civil war based on race, because there's been such a history of not dealing with race that the pressure now is to a boiling point.
So paint this picture, okay? What does evoking a collective trauma response look like? What does that mean?
Let me give you an example. So one way to evoke, now this is not necessarily the GOP, but it is part of the playbook, right? You have a black body like Colin Kaepernick or Sister Osaka playing tennis, who says, I am worn out, I can't do it no more, right? Or Colin Kaepernick kneeling on the football field, right? A collective trauma response is when you see primarily people in the white community saying, that is untenable, that is unworkable. Having that man kneel on the football field quietly cannot stand. Get him out of the league, blackball him, or whiteball him, like that. What you're watching is a collective trauma response that's steeped in history. How dare that black Afro-wearing man, right, kneel on the football field to protest police brutality? That makes me uncomfortable. Get him out of the league. That is a reflexive, uninterrogated response. When the young sister Osaka says, this is hurting me, so I don't want to expose myself to the press in this way. I need some rest. She needs to stop tennis then. She needs to do this, right? Get rid of her, da-da-da, right? History is replete with black people voicing for themselves, the 68 Olympics, voicing for themselves, holding the fist up, saying, I matter. That evokes a traumatic response from the collective of white people. How dare he or they or them make us uncomfortable? And so all the GOP is tilling that very fertile field. And I do see it, I don't see it being quiet this next time around. I don't see it being without bloodshed this time around. I see this being something that I see an authoritarian regime in the wings ready to come in. And part of that regime is stoking the kind of racial fields that have never been tended to.